Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Method to Our Madness podcast. My name is Stacey Merola, PhD, and I'm here with my co-host Bill Pate.
Hello.
And today we have a special guest who's going to chat with us about culturally responsive program evaluation. My dear friend Toks Fashola. We've known each other for probably over 20 years now, so we're really glad to have her on the podcast. Tokes, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Hello, I am Dr. Toks Fashola. I am a research professor and a senior professor lecturer at American University. I also do a lot of proposal writing and program evaluation. And I sometimes collaborate with Stacey and William, and I enjoy their company. I think they are absolutely amazing and brilliant. So I am glad to be on this show.
Thank you. So, how would you define culturally responsive program evaluation?
Can I give a shout out to my alma mater?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Let's go Gauchos, UC Santa Barbara. Woo woo. Okay. Class of 1995. I got my doctorate there. So I think let's go back to the concept of writing a proposal, and I'll talk about the culturally responsive component. There are a lot of projects and programs that exist right now, right? The federal government, a foundation, etc., etc. They give money to improve the world. They want to make the world a better place. And what you find sometimes is that, in spite of the fact that you have studied this proposal and you feel you know what is best for this proposal, for this population, I'm sorry, some things are not working out. And, you have the hypotheses, you have the dependent variable, you have the independent variable, you have all these things, you have approached the population, but for some reason, things are not working out. And then the question becomes, what's going on? Is it that the program does not work? Or is it that the population does not like the intervention? Or is it that there is something that is like a spurious variable that is affecting everything that nobody knows about? And then at some point, when you know about it, as you know, a spurious variable becomes a confounding variable. Culturally responsive evaluation and assessment means understanding the population that you are working with. Sometimes it means understanding that they come from a place of distrust and mistrust of science, of research, of interventions, and of anything that comes from the outside with the intent of improving their lives. And I put that in quotes. When I teach program evaluation courses, my first or my second class talks about evaluation ethics and quality standards. And we talk about things that have been done in the name of research and evaluation that have actually been very, very harmful, to our fellow humans. So, for example, we talk about the radiation man, we talk about the Nuremberg Code, we talk about the, Henrietta Lacks, the Tuskegee Airmen study, in which, things have just been done really, really horribly. As a result of this, what was done to Native Americans, what was done to Chinese and Japanese, and the list goes on. But as a result of this, there has been a lot of mistrust in different populations. Okay. Even where I live in Baltimore, Maryland, sometimes as researchers, we get grants to improve populations. We improve them for a small amount of time, and then we up and leave. And then we go to the next project. Culturally responsive evaluation really means going in and understanding who you are working with, and not necessarily going in as a missionary, as somebody who says, I'm going to make your life better, but bringing these individuals on as co-stakeholders. When you do your initial needs assessment, what do you want? Is there an issue? Are there challenges? What is going on? What do you need? And listening to them. And sometimes it means building trust over a period of time before you decide, we're going to go for this program evaluation. Oh, I'm sorry, before we decide we're going to, write this program proposal. So when we talk about culturally responsive evaluation, what happens sometimes is we're saying things and we're teaching things and we're implementing things and we keep getting negative results. And what happens is sometimes we blame the population. We say they are unable to learn. We say they don't care about their health, right? And what is really going on is we have to unspurialize, if that's a word, the spurious variables and say what is really going on. I'll give you an example. In Baltimore, if you have so many parking tickets, If you have parking tickets, you pay. If you have a certain number of parking tickets, what they do is they take away your ability to pay. Okay, when you rack up the parking, I mean your inability to drive, right? Every once in a while they'll do an amnesty day. But what started to happen, what Baltimore City began to realize, and I think what the controller began to realize all of a sudden, was that, wait a minute, that actually does more harm than good. Because if I'm getting parking tickets and I'm kind of sort of racking them up, if you take away my ability to drive, I cannot go to work if I have to drive to work. And that's bad for the city. Because if I'm not able to work and I'm not able to feed my family, and you may take away my driver's license, that's just not a good thing, right? And so what they decided to do was to say, we understand this population. No, you're not supposed to have tickets, but there are other things to do other than take away the driver's license. In another example, there were studies about medication and maybe curbing diabetes. And it's like if you take certain, doses of medicine, we give you the doses of medicine, and your diabetes should be curbed. But one of the things they found out was that when the study was over and you began to give out the medication, one of the things that they found out was that the improvement was not as good as it should have been. And that was because individuals could not afford their medication. So instead of taking the full dose, they would break the pill in half. They would break it into a quarter. And so for the study, they were told that you will have full access, but afterwards, after the study was done, this is when Congress began to get together and people began to talk to public health individuals, et cetera, and say, we need to lower the cost. What was going on in one case, the spurious variable, which became a confounding variable, was low socioeconomic status, inability to afford the very intervention that you have to take a certain dosage of in order to be able to improve. So when we talk about culturally responsive evaluation and assessment, we talk about understanding the populations when we come in as regardless of what we look like, when we come into that population, when we come into that group, when we come into that group of stakeholders, how can we build trust with them? And it doesn't start easily. But how can we build trust? How can we create trust and understand that, yes, a lot of harm has been done. And in some cases, we're trying to right some of these wrongs, right? The second thing is that when we come in, depending upon the study, culture-wise, you are the experts, and your culture absolutely positively influences what it is that we are implementing, because there are some things that we do not know. And so when we go in, we have to, now on the flip side, what we also have to do is understand that we come from, I don't know, an ethnocentric, education-centric, whatever centric perspective when we are implementing certain things, especially academically. So it is our job, it is our responsibility to understand and sometimes appreciate differences in responses that we get. One of the most amazing culturally responsive researchers that I can think about, and as an educational psychology student, and you'll be surprised when I say this, but it was Jean Piaget.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Because he
Okay.
Wow.
focused on the wrong responses of the children wrong.
Right.
And instead of saying this is incorrect, he said, wait a minute, what are they telling me? What are they looking at? Right? So his whole theory of this should happen and this should happen and this should happen and this was completely wrong. Right? And he said, wow. Another amazing person is Maria Montessori. Maria
Oh,
Montessori,
wow.
in her days, I'm an early childhood educator. One of the things that she did in Italy when low income children were not doing well, she went and got the children on the streets. She got the children who were orphaned. She got the children who were begging on the street, and she implemented a program that was completely different from any program. And at the end, that was implemented. In the end, her children did so well that they outscored the rich children. The
Wow.
Montessori program was created for low income
I didn't realize that because I
orphans,
think of it as
etc.
like something for like the rich kids,
No, it was
because it's
created.
expensive
It was
here.
created. It was created for suffer the little children to come onto me. That's who it was created for. But look at what has happened now.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Some
rich
methods
people.
have been taken and turned around, and the very people for whom that program was implemented, was created, have now been eliminated. But so when we talk about culturally responsive evaluation, in those two cases that I talk about, some of the things that we are able to do is to say, let's look at the differences. Let us appreciate the differences. In today's world, there are two organizations that I work with. One is CREA, It's called the Center for Culturally Responsive Evaluation and Assessment, which is out of the University of Illinois, and I am affiliate member. It was created by the late and great Stafford Hood, and then some of the people on there are my colleague, Dr. Rodney Hobson, Dr. Hank Frierson. And I remember when Stafford was talking about it, he kept talking about the concept of CREA and culturally responsive evaluation. And because I am trained in, he kept saying, so step outside the box with me for a little bit. And I would say, no, you cannot do that. And I think the way that I see it, he's like, just put your toe outside the box a little bit and lean over and listen to what I'm saying. And I thought, oh, wow, yeah. And he said, if you can get kids, and I thought about it, and it's right, because it's part of the work that I did. If you can get children, you have 2 children with a whole bunch of Lego, and you give one 2 pieces, and you give other 17 pieces, and you say, which is more? You better be darn tootin' right that the little kid is going to say, I want more, right?
Right,
Well,
right.
what happens when you come into the classroom and you teach the concept of greater than and less than? Why is it that all of a sudden these children are not doing what they do on the playground, right? You talk about first, last, and et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that he was saying was, is it our pedagogy? Is it our expectations? And or is it our understanding of the situations that are going on in that setting that are influencing, in a spurious way, the responses of the children? Culturally, CREA, we do evaluation. We have CREA Hawaii, they have CREA Dublin, and more importantly, CREA seeks to open the eyes of program evaluators. We seek to sit back and listen so that when our Hawaiian cousins are telling us that if you come over here, it's not because of your race, it's not because of this, but this is the culture of Hawaii, right? When our Native American cousins are saying to us, we have to honor the land that we are standing on, right? Before we do anything, we have to seed it. We have to understand the land that we are standing on, and that tells us that you basically kind of sort of understand some of our pain that we are going through. And at CREA, we listen to this, we acknowledge this, and as we try to bring people in and have conversations and work on different types of evaluation and address different types of research, it's very, very, very important for us to listen to what has to be said by our people who are not necessarily our colleagues, who do not necessarily relate to us ethnically, gender-wise, et cetera, et cetera. The other group that I belong to is ICQCM. It's called the Institute of Critical Quantitative, Computational, and Mixed Methods. And it comes out of Johns Hopkins. I am a scholar with ICQCM because one of the things that we seek to do is to have more, not only more, quantitative researchers, mixed methods researchers of color who are able to do culturally responsive research, but also who are able to sit in there, in the room with people and able to educate them about culturally responsive research so that when you go for this big proposal, you're able to say, wait a minute, let's think about it from this perspective. Let's think about it from this perspective. And so ICQCM and CREA are 2 organizations that I belong to that do that.
I'm not sure always about the methodological level of the folks listening. Can we define spurious and confound for folks? Those have been a key part of the discussion, and people might not really know.
I'll give you an example. So I go outside every day, and let's say I go outside for 2 weeks. And on the first 3 days, I'm sneezing like a maniac. And then 2 days, I'm sneezing, but not like a maniac. And then the remaining 4 days, I'm sneezing like a maniac. And I'm going back and forth. So I decide, okay, in the month of June, when I go outside every day, I'm going to sneeze because I've sneezed for the past number of days.
Right.
But I don't sneeze every day. And there is something going on that's making me sneeze. And I'm like, what is it? Maybe it's something I ate, whatever. And then a friend will say to me, have you thought about taking an allergy test? And I say, oh, wow, I didn't think about that. So I go take an allergy test and I learn I'm allergic to pollen. Well, the spurious variable is that I did not. So it's a spurious variable in that, number one, I did not know that I was allergic to pollen. and I did not know that there were certain things that I could do. The confounding variable is that because I'm allergic to pollen, when I go outside, I'm going to sneeze on certain days. So what do I do? So I know about it now. So what is something that I do? One of the things that I do is I check the pollen level every day and I take my allergy medicine. And on a day when the pollen is high, I take a double dose of allergy medicine. Yes, I might wheeze a little bit, I might do this, but in this case, I know that if I decide to go for a long walk or a long training run, I have to go on days when the pollen level is low, or I have to go at times of the day when the pollen level is low, because pollen is still confounding my outcome. But in this case, because I know what it is, I use an inhaler, I take my medication, and I do not expect to do the regular 5-minute miles that I do when I go out for my walk or run. No, I don't do 5-minute miles. Does that help to explain?
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
I
That'd
know.
be so nice to be able to do 5-minute miles.
Does that help to explain it?
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah. So the
Yeah, I
spurious
think that's great.
variable,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
something that's going on in the atmosphere that you do not know about. You have no idea. And it's controlling your dance and you don't know what it is. And then the confounding variable is when you find out there's this marionette that's actually controlling me, right?
Right.
Not all the time, but some of the time. So,
No,
Oh,
that's
that's great.
excellent. Yeah, because like whenever we do regression, so for example, for like any kind of a project where it's usually we have variables that we know about or that they
mhm,
actually track. And of
mhm,
course, they don't, not everybody tracks all the important variables. So
mhm,
sometimes it's what you can get, right?
mhm, mhm.
And you try to see, well, how much of the variance in our outcome is explained by these variables.
Exactly.
And we figure it out. We look at the R square, and in some instances, there'll be this huge amount of variance that's not explained by what we're tracking and what we know about. And I
Mhm,
appreciate what you're talking about because when we come in with these projects, well-meaning, well-intentioned, but we come in with a lot of assumptions.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so if we don't acknowledge these cultural differences or this cultural pushback or whatever it is, then we're missing a huge part of what's explaining the difference in the outcomes. And so I think you're absolutely right. As evaluators or applied researchers, we need to recognize that a lot of times the cultural stuff explains quite a bit.
Right.
And I had no idea about Piaget, but that's really cool. It's like he
Right.
he he sees this evidence and it's like, I want to understand this better.
yeah.
And so he actually takes the time. And I think a lot of times we feel like we don't have the space or time to do that. Because it's like, okay, we're having a kickoff meeting on this date. We're going to collect the data on this day. We're going to do it this way. We can't like pause and say, no, there's something important here that we need to understand. And we take
But
the
so
time to do that.
you're absolutely right. And when I think about culturally responsive, I also think about not only ethnically and not only gender wise, but sometimes culturally responsive to different institutions,
Mhm.
right? If you're going to do well, if you're going to do something with a public school system,
Mm,
as opposed to a university, as opposed to a for-profit or a non-for-profit organization, you're working with different entities and and different personalities. And sometimes, as we put together proposals and do certain types of work, we have to understand that if you're an American and you're working with this person, you have to have your ducks in order. That's it. If you're
Right.
working with this person might say, it's all right, I understand, right? So part of it is also part of it is our understanding, and this is kind of like social psychology, but basically how things work and how to do things and how to work and get along with others in order to get the best out of our grant and our grant proposal.
I think that's a
Yeah.
great point because, like, actually, so something that you helped me think about or remember was I co-wrote a book chapter with a person who does more M&E type stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and we were looking at the intersection of systems thinking and evaluation. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that came up with that was because you're looking at it holistically, it
Yes.
exactly gets into this area.
Yeah.
Like, and for us, the focus was deliberate stakeholder engagement, where even like you said, even before you formulate, what you think should be the logic model, what you think is the theory of change,
Mhm.
actually engaging with the potential participants, whatever the population is, ahead of time and bringing them in as like a co-collaborator allows you to identify so many of these things because it's like, oh well, we were thinking about doing this, and it's like, and then you get feedback, well, that's not going to work and here's three reasons why, and they give you that feedback, and it's like, oh, okay, well, this would have been a wasted effort, or we would have gotten like so little understanding if we had done it that way. But because you're deliberately engaging with all the stakeholders, you have a better understanding. And if
And
they're involved with it from day one
that's it.
and involved with like the reporting and the analysis, then they have like ownership, and they can help you determine like how the results should be shared and in what way, and what would resonate with them, what's important to them. Maybe one thing, and what's important for the funder may be a completely different thing.
You hit the nail on the head. So I was doing some work in Baltimore with an after school program. This is about almost 30 years ago. And we had 10 schools that we were working with. And there was pushback because I was with an institution that is very well known for bringing in federal money, doing what you need to do, and then leaving the community afterwards when they
Mm.
get it together. Went to these 10 schools, 10. And my goal as a brand new PhD was to help them to implement an after school program. And I'm from California. And I was brand new. I was still a gaucho. So when they were saying you, I'm like, to quote my California person, dude, I didn't do anything, you know? And you, I'm like, dude, that wasn't me. But I had to listen and listen. And I had a community organizer who sat there and she showed me how to listen and listen and listen. And I finally had to ask them, what do you want? They wanted to involve the after school program. They wanted the best for their children, etc. They were not fighting me. But when you talk about culturally responsive, they said, because it's like, what do you want from the city of Baltimore? And each school wanted something different. There were 3 schools that did not have playgrounds because outside the playgrounds were drug infested, etc. There were bottles and needles and all that stuff. So the children did recess inside the gym. There was a school that the city lights were out, one of the schools. And so it was dangerous for the children to walk home after the after school program, especially in the fall.
Right.
There was another school, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, there was another school. When you went to the school, you had to go all the way around the back because the front door didn't work. You literally had to ring the bell by the trash can, and you could slip on ice and all that stuff. So they said, we'll do the after school program, we'll do everything. And once again, like you said, we're bringing the stakeholders in, we're bringing the community and the school in, the teachers, but most importantly, the parents. And school number 1 said, we want a playground. We want our children to be able to play outside. The second school said, we want it to be safe for our children to cross the street to walk home and walk back if they're going to have an after school program during the non-school hours. The third group said, we want our children to be safe when we have the PTA meeting. We want the parents to be able to ring the bell at the front instead of telling them walk around the back.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't have the money. The city had the money. They did what they had to do. The first three or four schools, they got a playground, and the playground was beautiful. And the playground was so appreciated, and it was pristine. It was so amazing for years that sometimes when you had cookouts and all that stuff, they do it in the school. But
Oh,
before
wow.
started, everybody cleaned the school up because the community said that is our playground. Right. And the principal said, yeah, you can do cookouts, whatever, just clean it up. In the afternoon, a lot of children would play there. You didn't see so much as the cover of a Coke bottle. It was pristine. The school that wanted the thing, the ring the bell thing, they got it. And it was, and they appreciated it. They said, this was provided by blank, 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 blank. Baltimore City, and the name of the program. The parental engagement kind of went nuts. It went up. The third one, a third school, what they ended up doing was they had a police officer who was parked outside under the light so that, the children were safe. Well, we talk about systems. We had a new mayor who came in who said, police officers are not babysitters. Police officers are supposed to be catching the bad guys.
Right.
So what happens? The police officer had to leave. But if you think again, the spurious and the confounding variable, right? The spurious variable is lack of safety because it's dark. And then you say, wait a minute, the confounding variable is lack of safety because it's dark. What do? You fix the street light. They fixed the street light, and all of a sudden it was light outside, the street lights. That school was one of the best schools, right? So when we come in, and this is started with you, and at some point as the evaluator, I didn't do anything. I'm brand new, but then I had to say, what do you want them to give you? And at some point you become the intermediary. But what we're really doing is we're setting goals. I actually have a report on the program. I did a technical report on it. But what you end up doing is you bring them in, and because they know that you believe in their community and you believe in their culture and you believe in what they need, they will send their children to you. They will work with you. They will say, this program has to keep going.
Well, yeah,
And
they're being listened to and they're being appreciated. So,
and they're stakeholders. They are a part of it,
absolutely.
right?
Yes.
They're front. So when you deal with stakeholders, what tends to happen is, we bring in the top level stakeholders, not the front level stakeholders. You bring in the principals and maybe the vice principal, right, or the assistant principal. But what you don't bring in are the front level workers. You don't bring in the everyday people who say, wait a minute. If you say we're going to work for 4 hours a day, 7 days a week, first of all, the union does not allow that. And even if we say we're going to do it, you've got to understand that the janitors, they clean the classroom at 3:30 and then they go home. And we're going to go back into those classrooms and mess them up. So there are certain cultural things that we have to understand about that organization and say, okay, things need to be changed around, things need to move around. I would be remiss if I did not bring up my mentor, Dr. Edmund Gordon, who was the first evaluator of Project Head Start.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And he
That's
is
awesome.
100 and I've got to figure out how old he is. I think he's 104.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Lives in New York. And Dr. Edmund Gordon is brilliant. He was the first evaluator of Project Head Start. And I read a lot of the work that he had done on Project Head Start. I looked at the work that he had written with Dr. Edmund Ziegler. And I think this was one of my first introductions to culturally responsive evaluation, even though I did not know necessarily what it meant. But once again, we receive money to make children school ready. But school readiness among low income children means more than just knowing your ABCs.
Absolutely.
And so Project Head Start has 7 components. And they brought in a bunch of people from a number of areas. They brought in psychologists, they brought in sociologists, they brought in only 2 educators. They brought in pediatricians, the whole board, to talk about what it takes to make children school ready. But Dr. Gordon was brought on then with LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, as the program evaluator. And he was the voice of reason. He was one of the people saying that a child coming in to a classroom being able to understand his or her ABCs and 1, 2, 3s is not enough. One of the key things that he did was, when you talk about the culturally responsive, was involving the home and the parents. You've got to involve the parents, you've got to involve the home. Because if the parents are not for the preschool program, it is not going to work. And part of involving the parents means building trust.
Yeah, especially if it's difficult for them to get their kids to school in the first place, and then you add this additional burden by having them come even earlier. They have to believe in it. They have to understand like what is like the utility of it. Yeah, that's really fascinating. And this is really great. And again, this is exactly why we think, you're just gonna have to come back like again and again, because I feel like this was a nice introduction to culturally responsive evaluation. So maybe we can figure out like maybe some like final thoughts that you'd like to wrap up with or
Yeah.
anything that you'd like to say.
Sure. I think for me, when you talk about culturally responsive evaluation, I look at it as a path towards social justice, and especially social justice in evaluation. I think of it as when you understand culturally responsive evaluation, you are able to truly answer the questions that you had wanted to answer in the proposal, but more importantly, you are able to work with a community. I think about it as oh gosh, what is it called? It's not transactional learning. What is it called when learning is good for everybody, right? You talk about systems theory.
The transformational?
Transformational learning. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you,
Yay!
thank you. Yes, Stacey. Woo woo. And the sociologist at that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah. So I think about cultural responsive evaluation as basically, the path towards social justice, but the end is transformational learning. Thank you. Which means in the end, we all become better people, right? The
Yeah.
people that we serve are better in terms of, whatever challenges they were facing, but are being able to, to be improved. But I also think that for us, we learn a lot from these cultures. And what ends up happening is in our everyday life, when we are away from the position of evaluators, in our everyday life, we are able to learn some of those lessons. And then conversely, with these individuals, hopefully they're able to take away things from us that they have learned, but more importantly, they are able to then go not only into their individual communities, but into neighboring communities and be able to say, this is the deal, this is what's going on, this is what we have learned, and more importantly, this is what we have taught to make our corner of the world a better place. So,
I like that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks everybody for listening. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky,
YouTube,
YouTube.
MySpace.
I don't think we're on MySpace.
And in person, and maybe at conferences, right?
Yeah, that's true. Connect with us at conferences. If you're in New Hampshire, send me a message. Come say hi.
There'll be one. Yeah, I'm planning a trip down there.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you.